Is PoE 2 becoming PoE 1.5 and why this might not be a bad thing? Let me guess. Yes, it slowly is the take, and it's not bad because PoE 1 good?
Welcome
Is that
back,
the
you
argument?
filthy
Let's see.
exiles, and today we ask the question, is Path of Exile 2 coming into the form of
Wait, is
Path
that
of
a
Exile
B1?
1?
Does he have a B1 battle droid and like a Vader back here? I never realized he had so much like cool shit behind us here. That's
1.5. And
MechWarrior?
obviously there's some very interesting
Warhammer?
opinions floating around the community, and I thought I'd chime in and have a bit of a chat about it. I was actually going to do this as a State of a League video, but I decided to just do it as its own thing because I think it's a big topic. And, you know, you don't have to agree with my stance on it, by the way. I'm just trying to be very cogent and reasonable about my approach with it. But yeah, if you've got a view on it, put it in
Reasonable? Dude, you can't be reasonable. This is we have to have hot takes only.
the comments below. Just make sure you're civil and respectful to everybody. But anyway, let's
Civil
get
and
into
respectful?
the video and talk about this diverse topic that's going around right now in the community. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that. And anyway, let's get into the video. Okay, so we're at about week 4 or 5, as I recall. Now, how are the numbers looking for Path of Exile 2? So pretty much where we're at is, like, there was always the expected drop-off, right? Ignore the advertising. I don't have ad blocker on my browser at the moment. Anyway, so pretty much where we're going is, like, the numbers inevitably will drop off, but we're looking at 24-hour all-time or 24-hour peaks of 70,000.
It's really not that bad.
And like a concurrent player base of 40,000. That's actually really, really strong. Like,
yeah.
Considering how far we are into the league, I think 0.3.1 brought a lot of players back in.
For sure it did. And then there's actually more reason to play. Like, it wasn't a brutal launch. It's the first time we actually have like additional content to do, and then people are remaking more characters now because you don't have to play the act 1 through 3 and then crow act 1 through 3. So it was twice as annoying before to do the campaign because you make a new character, then you go to make your second character and effectively play the campaign like 4 times in 2 characters. So you don't have to do that anymore. So it's way more enjoyable to make new characters now. So
and
they play
definitely
longer.
The 0.3 patch, and my opinion has changed. I'll be candid and say I'm happy to shill for GGG at this point because the game be really good. Anyway, it's getting a lot better,
really good.
and it's a lot of fun. The build diversity is there. There's insane stuff coming out of it. And now we're really looking at the point where we're hitting a balance point where the game feels good. It plays pretty well. It has performance issues, notably. I'm sure there will be people in the comments below. They'll be like, but my game crashes. My game crashes all the time too. However, it's still fun. Abyss crafting has definitely been a huge game changer. And now with the 0.31 changes, and we'll go through that very briefly soon, the boss changes is pretty significant. The only comment that I'll say about it right now is Ubers need to be scaled up. And that's the problem with the changes they have made is around power creep. And this was...
So my thing is, like, I don't feel like we have Ubers. I think by Ubers he's referring to tier 3s. I would assume that tier 3s are not the equivalent of an Uber. Like, we'll be receiving Uber Zesht, Uber, Oroth, etc., which typically the Ubers have like additional mechanics and are significantly harder battles. I mean, the Uber Arbiter kind of didn't set that precedent, which is why I was curious to see what Uber Arbiter would be. But that is like the definition of Ubers before. So I don't unless that their way of doing it is like, if it's tier 3, it's Uber, but that kind of just wasn't like my understanding of what they are. So I think the tier 3 pinnacles are kind of like the entry level bosses to the in-game, and that the in-game is going to be built on top of that in terms of bossing would be my understanding.
It's a big issue in Path of Exile 1 and is now potentially becoming an issue in Path of Exile 2. You realize the original vision didn't really work, and so they've pivoted and they've changed their direction to a more traditional Path of Exile direction. And so now they have to rebalance the whole game. And I'm sure they will do that. Pretty much the changes we've seen have been very, very drastic at this point. And it's definitely showing in the player numbers. Now, for anyone who's doubting, player drop-off, well, we start to look at the percentage here. I have no idea what that ad is. So we're just going to ignore that.
That's a great ad.
Anyway, we look at the player numbers here, which is last 30 days, 20.68% drop-off, right? Now, we look at this... Around about the same sort of time last year, or not last year, earlier in the year when the first 0.2 patch came out, right? 63.3%, and then a progressive 54.2, 49.33, right? So like based on these numbers, and some people will say, oh, this isn't a representation of all the numbers. Statistically, it is a population of player base, or it is a sample of the population, including consoles or whatnot. Now, I can't talk for console numbers because we don't have those. We have Steam charts. So
Yeah.
that's what we're using. But based on this, there is more retention occurring within the game. And that is partly or predominantly because of the point 0.3 changes, which is moving it into the aforementioned PoE 1.5 area of things. And we'll talk about that in the next, in the next few parts of the video. But all I can say now is this is good. This is really, really, really where the game needs to be. And obviously, we just got the announcement for 3.27 for PoE 1, which means they've figured out their workflow. They've figured out how to deliver on time, and they're not biting off more than they can chew. Are we going to get a full 1.0 launch for December? I don't think so.
No
I
way,
would say
dude. No,
PoE 2
no way.
has easily another 1.5, even if not 2 years left in the chamber cooking at this stage, which is just the nature of it, right? PoE 1 was pretty similar in nature, to be honest with you. The like extra 4 acts didn't come. I think it was 5 acts didn't come until like 3 or 4 years down the track. So like, things are moving very similarly in the trajectory of PoE 1. Like, is this a game that you're going to be looking to replace out in the next 2 years? I doubt it. Like, this game's going to be around for like the next decade. PoE 1 has been around for about 12 years now, maybe moving into 13 years. It's a very old game now. Thinking about that, that's like generationally, that's pretty big.
I mean, it's like D2 now. Like, people are going to play forever. There's always going to be people that play it forever, and if they keep releasing content on it, it's just going to continue to evolve more and more and more.
But anyway, look, the moral of the story here: player base is strong. Things are holding together, which is really good. The game is continuing to pump a strong result with player numbers, even with other things coming out around it. The big hit will come from the likes of like Battlefield 6, which comes out on the weekend, and I'm going to be playing that. But like a Diablo 4 League came out somewhere in between there too, and nobody plays Diablo anymore. But anyway, no offense to those of you who might still play it. But look, PoE 2 is standing out right now as the king on the ARPG list. Is it better than PoE 1? I think it's getting very close to being better than PoE 1, but it just isn't quite there just yet. It's still an excellent ARPG though, and I'm happy to predominantly feature on the channel, which is fantastic. Like I'm excited again, and it's good to see a game that I really invested my years into starting to come to fruition and really finding its pacing. I think if GGG follows what they're doing right now, this game is going to be a total success at the very end of it all, and 1.0 is going to be absolutely stellar. Okay, so the big one here is what's my thoughts on 0.3.1? So I think I've sort of summarized that. I think it's fantastic. I think that...
Yeah, I really haven't seen any, like, I just haven't seen anyone that's come out and say like 0.3 sucks. I've seen some bad response to the latest mid-league patch, in particular, mostly about the nerf of quantity as well as related to the annoyance of having to actually make maps. I get that part. Okay, sure, fair. But in terms of like actual feedback on the actual league, it just seems like pretty much. I don't think I've seen a single video or anything of anyone coming out and just being like, "No, it's bad for this reason." Like I just don't see that opinion.
The changes that they made to bosses was the right decision to scale out. Making the they increased their HP, right? Are they going to be like totally meaningful? In combat wise, I don't think that that's possible in the game now. I think where we are at is we need a solid foundation for an ARPG, which we've got now.
Man, look how zoomed out the camera used to be. Dude, can we get a camera zoom like this, please?
I think the balance is getting to where it needs to be. And I think because of that, they can now focus on new content that needs to come into the game, because now the game is finding its identity. And that's for the longest time been one of the biggest gripes that I've had with the game, and many other creators and many other players, has been the game didn't really know what it was initially. And so it sort of just threw things at the wall, hoping that one of the spaghetti strands would stick at some point in time. I feel like it's finally getting to the stage where we sort of know what combat should feel like. Is Zoom going to go away? Absolutely not. Like, Zoom is part of Path of Exile. Really, like, what Path of Exile 2 now really is becoming is the successor to Path of Exile 1, not a separate game. And I'm not negative to that, because PoE 1 has had its time in the limelight. I don't want, by the way, I'll preface this, I love PoE 1 and I don't want it to die. am I going to be
Pole
as
axe, an
concerned if they
axe.
drop off down the track now with the way that PoE 2 is presenting? Not so much. I'm not now so stressed about things that I previously was, because, you know, over many videos, and I'm sure anyone who's been following the channel for a long time definitely expressed concern for where the future direction would be with Path of Exile 2 if it can't figure these things out. And I feel like they're getting at that point now. So,
yeah, that's what 0.3 really was. I've said it before, but like 0.3 was really a breath of relief for people. It's just like, oh, thank God, like they actually can make something. I think there's still people that are not going to enjoy what PoE 2 has to offer just fundamentally and prefer PoE 1, and that's just not going to change. It's just fine. Preferences exist. But I think at this point, at least most of the response I've seen just towards the game just seems like generally positive by like more or less everyone. I mean, pretty close to everyone. There's been, I mean, some negative feedback, but it's mostly like at this point constructive feedback, not just like this game is fucking dog shit. Like, why are you wasting your time on this? At this point, it's like more constructive feedback.
a lot of the changes that came in around the endgame bossing changes. Obviously, bosses now, when they're juiced up, are juicy as hell, and I like that.
It's more positive because the 300K did not like it left. Yeah, they went to probably back to PoE 1, and they're actually getting leagues now. Like, I think a lot of it too was that, I mean, they really kind of didn't have anything for PoE 1 players. So if you weren't interested in PoE 2 and you had a 9-month league, the PoE 1 players were getting shafted, basically. And so now that, you know, they actually have an expansion and that we're having another one in October and we're getting an announcement and they're actually having the reliable cadence, like, okay, if you just want to play PoE 1, like, we're not going to forget about it. You can stay out the league. And if the next league is good, etc., then, you know, people will be more satisfied by that too. You can kind of just ignore PoE 2 if you want to play PoE 2 and you can play your OG game.
Like that they're difficult and challenging. Now you have like challenge bosses, things like that, which I think is good. Loot drops, I think, are better. Like, they feel better, at least. The maps feel more challenging as an overall, and I like the fact that now every map has a boss. I think that change was so significant because it avoids the
Bosses
whole
are
thing about
crazy
backtracking.
now.
Like, it's and candidly, like, that's PoE 1. It's mechanics that worked fantastically in PoE 1, and now they've just applied that to PoE 2, and I think, like, that's a huge thing. Uber bosses right now, I feel, are a problem because they're too easy, right? So people are having challenges with the
map
map
bosses
more so than they're
yeah, this is true. Map bosses are actually scarier than pinnacles.
having challenges with the Uber bosses, which is wild. So that means that the Uber bosses need to be reworked. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next patch we see a total overhaul to how Ubers work, like Zesh and King of the Mist and all that. And those are made far more challenging. I think the ascendancies are where they need to be, though the difference between the drop tables in Ultimatum versus you know, Trials of Sekhmet, I think needs to be considered, because Trials of Sekhmet is just far more profitable. I guess it's a risk and reward thing, but Ultimatum can be quite rippy. But like, they're becoming less difficult. I've definitely noticed it's far easier to ascend, which is good, and that shouldn't be a prohibitor to being able to get your fourth ascendancy. I think they're at a good point of balance.
Yeah, that's try the ascendancy is fine.
Like, mapping just feels far more fluid. If you've got a good build that can do it, even if you've got a semi-good build, you can still have a lot of fun in mapping, even if you want.
Yeah, but I still think there's a problem with setting up the maps. Like, towers are gone, which is nice. You don't have to worry about overlapping towers, but like the amount of work that you have to do, like setting up the juicing of the towers, you got delirium and you got to do all this shit. You got the tablets, like that's part still kind of annoying.
Stick with T10 mapping, you could do that and it's still going to be fun.
But 0.4 is coming.
I think the overall issues exist too. Like, one portal maps are just unnecessary, and the same with like Ubers. Like, if you can one shot an Uber with one portal, like, why not just have 6 portals at all levels and just do it like Path of Exile 1? At this stage, I feel like they're just going to slowly move things more and more back in the direction of PoE 1, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think PoE 1's mapping system was pretty much almost perfect, right? Had some issues, but I think as an overall, it felt pretty good. Now, the things that I'm excited about the Waystone, and in particular Precursor tablet changes. So Precursor tablets now operate like scarabs. For anyone who doesn't know what a scarab is, it just modifies the map, right, and adds whatever mechanic onto it. This is far more lucrative than relying on the map to generate the content for you, because it means you don't have to do the stupid tower thing. I don't necessarily think towers have very much purpose anymore aside from visibility and precursor.
That's why I think the towers should give you the ability to teleport within the range of the tower. Just like you used to put the tablet in, and it used to allow you to, you still can access things within the range of that tower. I think that should fundamentally just be a part of the tower, so you are incentivized to go to a tower to allow you to teleport to anywhere would be really nice. It's just a little bit of a movement buff related to the tower. Otherwise, yeah, I kind of agree with like having towers just doesn't really seem to like have as much of a reason.
Tablet drops. So I don't really know what they're going to do with that, but they definitely need to do something with towers.
Yeah, you can make tower
seems like
do
a
something,
redundant thing to just leave them in there. I think over time, what will eventually happen will be the endgame will slowly move in the trajectory of becoming very close to what the PoE1 endgame looked like with the mapping.
Sure, yeah, slowly
like
will.
And the mapping atlas increases the probability of better maps dropping, yada, 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 so on, so on. And I also think that the Atlas skill tree will eventually change.
I'm good at turn up, I think.
Very similarly sort of looks like something from Path of Exile 1. And the reason being is because
look at that old gem setup.
So obviously Abyss will become like a precursor tablet in the next, everything will become a precursor tablet, right? That's just the nature of it, which means we need a tab for that now because too many of those precursor tablets. The thing here is like I'm adamant. I think Delve is on its way. Whether it's in 0.4 or the league after, it's going to come. I think the big thing here is like to be able to access, like even if they added like Heist in, this theory is that Heist might be coming. If they added Blight in,
Heist. I feel like I'm the only person who doesn't enjoy Heist at all. Like I have never had a second of fun playing Heist in PoE1. I just don't like it. I'm glad for other people to like. It's the same. I feel the same way that when people see me play Blight, I'm like, why do you like this shit? Like I hate this. Like that's the way I feel about Heist. I've never enjoyed Heist. I don't think there's a single thing I really like about it. I mean, arguably the drops and that it's kind of a side mode's cool, but like outside of that, Heist is just like it's just not for me. I would really be bummed out if that's the next league mechanic, just from personally.
I think if you want to add any or all of these things, and they basically like things in particular like Delve need things like Sulfite that needs, resource generator, and this new way of approaching the end game addresses that. And I've covered this in the last two videos about my speculations over Delve. But basically, you couldn't add Delve in if you didn't have the end game that's now in Path of Exile 2, because there wasn't really any way that you could feasibly guarantee to generate a resource to be able to play endgame content. And I feel like they realized that this decision they made originally to just be different actually walled them into a position where they couldn't add future league content, not just PoE1 league content, but they couldn't add league content specific to PoE2 on the basis of it just wouldn't be accessible to the same degree as what it was in PoE1. I feel like it was like an artificial limiter that would stop them from making lucrative things. Like who knows what they're going to make in PoE2 league land, right? And this sort of gets us onto the track of talking about PoE2 taking, cliff notes from PoE1, right? So what's the question I would pose to people that say they don't want to see that happen? What do you want them to do though? Like if the system doesn't work and they have this game that has already perfected the art of how that system should work, why wouldn't they take that? And
it's literally
then
a sequel.
could invest in future new content quicker or more sooner than trying to reinvent the wheel.
More sooner.
So like the whole argument about, we're still sort of stepping into the territory of PoE1 becoming, or PoE2 becoming PoE1 is like, what is the actual issue here? Like people are saying, the game is not.
Well, so part of it is there's two things at least, okay, which is one is people don't want them to remake PoE1 again because people were like, look, if I liked PoE1, I would have just played PoE1. It already exists. I chose not to play it for 10 years for a reason. I'm interested in where you're going with the new one. They also typically don't just want to see a repeat of everything that's coming in PoE1 because they want something fresh, new, and exciting. So it's not just like, all of the mechanics that are coming from PoE1 will come into PoE2. Well, I guess I'll wait 10 years and then we have PoE1, that with a graphical update. That is part of it. for sure. The other part of it is that there are people that do not like the tribalism and are literally just mad at PoE 1 players in general because they feel like the PoE 1 players shit on PoE 2 all the time just because it's PoE 2 and they like it. In the same way it used to be Diablo versus PoE, and there was like this fight against it where like you just kind of like hate the other one because you're sick of the other people. Like that actually happens back in the day for the two different games, but now that sort of same phenomenon is happening and it's like a civil war as opposed to a war between the two games. So there are people that literally know nothing about PoE 1 but don't want PoE 1 and PoE 2 just because they find the PoE 1 people annoying, and there's the vice versa of like the PoE 1 people might not like the PoE 2 people because they feel like the PoE 2 people just don't understand what made the game great and don't respect its lineage and are giving dog shit feedback because they don't understand the game and they haven't spent the time and they're tourists basically. So there are like that is definitely part of the equation on both sides. Okay, so like I can see this same shit. The reason I know it's the same shit happened in RuneScape, bro. Like, people was like, oh, I like RS3. You just need to get over your old boomerism. And then there's the people that stuck to what RuneScape used to be, and then they all came back for old school RuneScape. So like that is definitely there's multiple reasons as to why. I'll do the Jonathan meme here. There's multiple reasons as to why this equation happens for sure.
Going to be very different or anything like that, but that's not true. It's totally different. We haven't even seen the rest of the classes yet, so we haven't even seen how the balance applies across the board. We're missing a whole 2 campaign acts. We don't have the last ascendancy yet, the ascendancy method, and then we haven't even hit 1.0, which is when they're going to start introducing new league content for PoE 2 specifically, I would surmise, and based on past interviews. So like, we're in early access right now. For people making the comment that they don't want to see PoE 1, or for whatever reason they hate PoE 1 or whatever it is, but you've got to understand that like PoE 1 beat every other ARPG at their own game
for
the
sure.
last decade. And why wouldn't you as a company take the tech that you've designed already and improve it drastically? Like, look at Abyss. Abyss basically pulled in all the best parts of unveiled stuff out of.
Well, I mean, not only that, but like other games have failed by trying to get away from their original formula. I mean, everyone just said they wanted Diablo 4 to basically be Diablo 2. They got away from their OG formula, right? I hate to use that example for the millionth time, but like it is kind of a relevant point. So when people talk about like, oh, I don't want that, I wanted to basically pretend PoE 2 is like a completely different game. They want it to be a new ARPG entirely and have nothing to do with PoE 1, like it's a different company, different. It's like, that's not the world we live in. PoE 1 is a successful, great game, probably still the best ARPG ever made. In fact, I would say it is. So, like, why would you not look at the best game ever made? And why is the conversation in this iteration where you look at PoE 1, you're like, PoE 1 is fucking awesome. Why is that not relevant when it's relevant with every other game? And if I point any other game, it's like, oh, you should have looked at Diablo 2. Oh, the Halos aren't as good as they used to be anymore. Age of Empires 4 is not as good as Age of Empires 2. Like, why did that conversation point work in every other game except in this one? I think it does work in this one. I think there's just like too much of a war going on between it for people to really be reasonable about it.
With the Syndicate League from PoE 1 and then bundled that with the Abyss content, and it's fantastic. It's not the same content as PoE 1 like people think. Like the interaction in maps is far different. Like, it's number one, much more fun and much crazier. Obviously Desecrate mods suck. But basically, like, the whole, like, go down, Coolamac fight, and that's really good. Like, that's totally different. Like, there are elements that are the same, right? But it's still, like, different in a lot of ways. And it's refreshed and renewed. It looks really good. It's fun. It probably wasn't a bit of content that broke the bank for them, and they just...
Because PoE 1's already the best of what it does. Yeah, but it fails in some regards. Like, one such being able to bring in new players and have the new players be able to actually access and learn the game at a decent rate, which I think we can all agree PoE 2 does significantly better. So I would say just because something is the best at what it does doesn't mean they can't still like improve it. Like, I would say PoE 1 is at the best at what it does, but it also used to be the best at what it does, and it improved upon being the best at what it does. Right? At some point it took over and now it's the best, and then did it just stop? Did it only get worse after it was the best? Like, there was growth there that happened in a certain point. So I don't see why you couldn't continue to develop and become better and better and better and better.
Had to amalgamate content. And I would say this will happen with a number of things. Like, I would say they're going to overhaul the breach stuff. They're going to overhaul the ritual stuff at some point in time. I would definitely say Delve is going to make its way back in because like they've already alluded to that with like the Isle and Akin, and all the Nico references and everything else. So, and the mapping setups and things like that are starting to look very Delvish. So there's some testing definitely going on there. Blight would make a lot of sense. Like, and a lot of this other stuff too that people are like, you know, clamping down on that's PoE1 is actually lore-based stuff too that fits into the themology of the game. So like I've seen the comments, and my comment is like, why throw acid at this situation? Like, you know, yeah, you're going to get a lot of content, and then when 1.0 hits, you'll have all the PoE, you know, one stuff that needed to be ported over, because quite frankly, a lot of that stuff is really, really good. And then you get all the PoE2 stuff that comes in isolation, which will probably be quite good. So I think like there's a bit of overreaction in the community there. And, you know, we just need to calm down a little bit. I really like the idea of seeing like all past content that I love in PoE1 making. So Heist is a fantastic mechanic in PoE1. Like it's one that
Disagree.
not everybody.
No, yeah, I don't like Heist. Okay, there's things from PoE1 I like, and there's things from PoE1 I don't like. I mean, that one's not for me, dude.
Likes, like all bits of content, but I think it's got a place in PoE too. Now, talking about like the way the gameplay works in point 0.3 and point 3.1, things like that, I think the changes to the campaign duration and length, the accessibility of gear, obviously crafting is gradually improving over time. I think eventually the crafting bench may still find its way into the game when they really just run driftwood and they go, bugger it, we're just going to add it back in whatever form it takes. But definitely crafting is a lot better. It is probably getting to the point where it's going to become more tedious than PoE1. So, you know, crafting bench really does just make things much easier. But anyway, whatever. At this stage, it's a lot better than what it was. So let them have it, right? Yeah, the thing is like, and I'll think I've got footage on the screen now of what PoE2 originally looked like when they first announced the Act 2 trailer, right? So people that were
Dude, this long ago, and it actually looks like somewhat. So obviously the UI is different, the character models are different, and all, but like the zone layouts aren't that different.
like, you know, hardcore in point one, and obviously, you know, saying that the game was fantastic and amazing and all this other stuff. Well, guess what? The community didn't think that in point two, right? Point two was a dumpster fire. Player loss, drop off. GGG probably lost a bit of money on that one too. Point three, they came out the gate with what is arguably the best patch to date. And you know, I can't really fault. There are definitely issues. There are things they nerfed and changed and all the rest of it, and we had to find and investigate things over time. And we found that it was actually a really good patch. You know, Void things didn't initially look like they were working, but
It's a
they do
mechanic
work.
that's not in the game anymore.
And definitely armor is hugely. I hope they don't touch armor now. Armor is actually really, really good. And it's a lot of fun to play melee builds again. But like, you know, based on that position, like, what is the issue then? Like, I understand like people, and you make the comment Dark Souls, and certain people really get up in arms and offended by that, and they're like, it's not real Dark Souls. Of course it's not real Dark Souls, we know that. But the ideology was there, that it was like following the path of like a much more friction based combat system and whatnot. So like
Bro, people just say Dark Souls anytime there's bosses that are somewhat difficult and there's shit to dodge and it has a dodge roll. That's like it is not fucking Dark Souls at all. There are no campfires. It's not an open world. People literally just say Dark Souls because it's dodge roll against the boss. It's the most fucking annoying thing. Like it's not Dark Souls.
I would challenge people to.
And what's hilarious though is like I feel that way, but I think even wasn't there an interview somewhere where they says Souls like inspires? I feel like there was, maybe I'm confusing with No Rest for the Week. I thought there was an interview somewhere where they literally got said by themselves, but it doesn't seem anything like Dark Souls at all.
Say, you know, why are you upset? Why are you really upset with the changes? And the other thing I would say is that it's good to see the game moving, and the reason why I'm so excited is because what you would be watching on screen while I'm talking in the background is the game that was promised. Like that clip was from 4 years plus ago, nearly 5 years ago, right? So the game that was promised back to all of the PoE community originally is the game that they're now making. And there's nothing misleading about that whatsoever. They tried some stuff in point one, and it just didn't work. And I would say that they play the game themselves and realized it didn't work. I think the feedback is part of it. I think the other side of it is that you still have to remember that the developers are gamers themselves, and the developers have played a lot of Path of Exile as well. And so they would have played their own game and realized it's just not as fun as their first game. And now, like, the game feels fantastic to play. Like, it has issues, as I've noted all throughout this, and I'm being very, very middle line here. But at the same time, it's night and day compared to point one when the fun scale comes in. It takes about approximately 16 hours to get through the campaign now on a slow run. And I have no issues with that because it means that, you know, if you work full time, you can take Saturday and Sunday off. You can get to maps by the end of the first day if you go hard with a lot of caffeine. And then by Sunday, you're like min-maxing your first character. Arguably, the only thing I would say is it takes too few of hours to min-max your character, and it's too quick to get to like pinnacle bosses and stuff like that. But
I don't think that's a balance issue as much as like that. There's just not a lot to min max with yet. I mean, you have jewels and shit, but it's just not done yet. Like a lot, the passive tree is still getting built out. Basically, there's still more mechanics left in the game to be done, etc. There's like they have with the unveiled mods added more shit that you can actually min max, and the new essences added more shit. We just need more leagues. It's simple as I just need more leagues to have more stuff so you can do more things to your character. That's all.
That's, you know, all stuff that's being, you know, repealed and corrected in the 0.3.1 patch, where it, you know, map bosses are a lot more challenging. Things
you can take ideas from PoE1 without copying and pasting everything. Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're right, and I also think that's sort of like, is that not what an Abyss is an example of? Like they took Abyss and then they reworked the mechanic of Abyss to be like a fundamentally different kind of Abyss, right? It's not exactly the same. It doesn't have the same rewards. The boss isn't exactly the same. The way it works on the map isn't exactly the same.
are a lot more challenging.
And also that has a new voice actor in there that I heard's very handsome in real life.
And I really like all the changes. So, moral of the story, I have absolutely no issues with this game moving in the direction of a PoE 1.5. Now, one would argue and say, well, what happens to PoE 1? I think at a certain point, like, you know, PoE 1 is just going to be less of a, you know, a luster of a game to people because of just the age of the game. Like, it is going to age out at some point. And I feel like, you know, moving towards focusing more attention to PoE 2 and the current trajectory it's on is where GGG needs to be to reconsolidate further down the track. And I'm talking like maybe 6-7 years down the track. But the reality is, like, how long does a game last? I guess World of Warcraft's a good example where a game has lasted a very, very long time, but very few games ever make it to the longevity of World of Warcraft. So, you know, is PoE 1 one?
WoW broke the ceiling in which there's just so many fucking people to play the game that WoW will always have some people to play the. I mean, it's just it's genre establishing games like Diablo 2, for instance, that create the whole genre themselves will have a higher baseline indefinitely because they were like ones to establish that. I mean, people are still playing Super Metroid that like help establish Metroidvania, right, with Castlevania. So like games that are like the OG grandfather of it will kind of always have a higher baseline, in particular because if it created the genre, it was probably successful enough that other people replicated what they did. And replication, like imitation, is the biggest form of flattery. Kind of a compliment to the OG game. People try out the OG game, and it also means the base, like the amount of players that play, were definitely higher, and that just kind of gives it longevity as well. Like WoW is an example of this, even though it wasn't the one that made MMOs. Like it's an example of this.
Those games, or is PoE 2 really going to be the new focus moving forwards? And this is something that we're going to find out in the years to come, but not in any short-term, immediate sort of process. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this topic. Because it's obviously diversive, and you know, people are somewhat, you know, there's a fair bit of friction in the community, and I'll put up a poll that I put up on the channel. So to get a bit of an idea of where people felt about this issue, I put up a poll. I got about 1,000 votes on it, so it's a small like sample of the population, right? But 61% of people are genuinely just happy, and they think the changes are good. We got 6% think they're bad. It's a pretty low margin. And 20% is concerned about how this works long term. And I think I've spoken about that to a bit of length now. And 14% don't care. They probably don't even play Path of Exile 2, or they play, you know, PoE 1, and like D4 and Torchlight and everything else, or they, you know, play other games or whatever. But like the reality here is, like, you know, I understand people's concern in the 20% bracket because like maybe they had a particular, you know, thing in mind that PoE 2 was going to be. and PoE 2 is just turning into a PoE game right now, and that's, I think, the best direction for it to follow. But you know, everyone has an entitlement.
Dude, PoE is PoE. More news at 11, boys.
It's their opinion, and whether you agree with me or not, entirely up to you. You can post it in the comments below. I am in the 61 percentile here, and I think the changes are good. And I hope to see that they continue with this line of changes, because I think this is going to play into being the best outcome for PoE 2 at this stage, and it's going to pull the biggest player numbers, and it's just, as an overall, going to be a lot more fun than the direction they were taking in point 1 and point 2. Anyway, let me know in the comments below about everything I've talked about, and let me know what you think. Whether you agree or disagree, or you think I'm crazy, then yeah, definitely post up below. And just be civil and respectful. Okay, so that's pretty much my take.
Civil and respectful?
I'm not concerned by
no
the whole
shot.
argument of the PoE 1.5 argument. I really like the direction of the patching that's happening in the game. I like the overall game direction, and I think balance is starting to be achieved. I think things need to be a little bit more difficult with the Ubers. But I do really like the direction of the game. Build diversity is there. There's some fantastic builds. If you don't believe me, check out the community builds series that I put together every week now. But yeah, as an overall, I think like where PoE 2 is heading is in the right direction. That's where it needs to go. And obviously, with every decision that's made, there is always the there's one side that's 2, one side that's 4. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't play the game.
One side that's 2, one side that's 4. Yo, one-sided battle. Let's go.
I'm virulently against that. I just do not like that stance. I think like you play the game for what it is, and play it the way that you enjoy playing the game at the end of the day. But anyway, until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video, and have a good one.
Yeah, nah, that's a good video. In terms of PoE 2 becoming PoE 1.5, I mean, I think they're going to take concepts from PoE 1 that work into PoE 2, and they're going to slowly slot them in. Obviously, we are seeing mechanics be brought in. Obviously, points about the movement speed. They're trying to find middle ground. Like sprinting is like an example of this. People want movement speed, so what they do, they added sprinting, which isn't exactly just baseline go up in movement speed, but it is helping people that want to get between max, packs of mobs faster, or sprint past mobs in the campaign, etc. So I'm not too worried about it, because most people seem to be pretty happy with this, like he showed in his poll. Overall, it seems to be a W league.